By way of introduction to today's reflections, I'd like us simply to listen to a story. Because it involves a child, it used to be a very popular story in Sunday school, but it isn't really a child's story. So today I'd like us to hear it through adult ears. The child in question was a little girl, a little Israelite girl, who was captured by a band of Aramean soldiers and taken away from her home and her family back to the country of the king of Aram. There she became the servant to the wife of the great general Haman. Now, though he was such a great general, Naaman had one real sorrow. He suffered from a terrible skin disease, which is usually translated leprosy, and none of the priests of the gods he worshipped had been able to heal him. But the little Israelite girl knew that the gods she worshipped had that power, and one day she said to her mistress, "If only my master would go to the prophet in Samaria, he would be able to heal him." So Naaman's wife told her husband, and he told the king, and the king immediately sent his general off to the king of Israel with lavish gifts and the instructions to the Israelite king, "Heal my servant." Well, the Israelite king was terrified. He knew he couldn't do such a thing, and he deeply suspected that this was a plot to provoke confrontation and provide an excuse for an attack. The whole court was distressed and in an uproar, and news of that came to the prophet Elisha. Elisha sent a message to the king saying, "Send Naaman to me, and I'll take care of it." So the king passed the message on, and Naaman in his chariot drove down and waited outside Elisha's house while his servant went in to ask the prophet for advice. Well, the next thing that happened is Naaman's servant comes back out with a simple message. The prophet says, "Go and wash 7 times in the river Jordan, and you will be healed." That wasn't at all what Naaman had expected. He thought that the prophet would come out and make some elaborate ritual gestures and speak some magic words. He couldn't understand why he should bathe in this rather muddy Jordan when there were rivers like Abana and Partha back home that he thought were much better. So he set off back home, basically in a huff. Fortunately, his servant had the gumption and the courage to say to his master, "Won't you think again? If the prophet had asked you to do something really difficult, would you have done it?" "Well, of course," said Naaman. "I'd do anything to be healed." "Well, in that case," said his servant, "just because the prophet asks you to do something as simple as bathe in the river Jordan, why not try it?" So, to give him his due, Naaman agreed to give it a go, and went and bathed in the river. And after he came up out of the water, his skin was as clean and healthy as the skin of a child. That's where I want to leave the story today, although there is an epilogue, and you can read the rest of it in the 2nd book of Kings, chapter 5. But for just now, let's leave Naaman on his way home, healed and convinced of the power of the God of Israel.